Good afternoon. Thanks for leading us in worship. I'm going to start by just sharing something about myself that you might not know. While biblical studies is my passion, and I teach in the area of New Testament, I'm also keenly interested in amateur astronomy as a personal hobby. And this is something that goes back to my days as an undergraduate student, which now that I'm 41 feels, well, it kind of is half a lifetime ago now. I'm going to try not to think about that too much. But I was in the final year of university and I needed a science elective to finish my bachelor's degree. And State University in my hometown of Columbus, Georgia, was offering a course on astronomy that looked really interesting. And so I registered and took it. It was one of the best decisions of my life, as that course opened new vistas for me and sparked an interest in astronomy that has stayed with me for the better part of the last 20 years. During the pandemic, when we were all housebound and in quarantine and couldn't go anywhere, I bought a telescope and renewed my love for this hobby. And so when the weather cooperates, I go stargazing sometimes. And I take my kids stargazing too. It's something that we can do together. It doesn't cost a lot of money either. And it's a lot of fun. So, they've been able to see Mars and Jupiter, the rings of Saturn, not only in pictures online or in a book, but through a lens. There's an immediacy to it that makes me love stargazing, and it makes it so much fun. But stargazing is also something that makes me feel closer to God because it reminds me of who He is. And so Scripture teaches us that creation is not merely something that we inhabit or participate in or benefit from, although these things are true. Rather, Scripture teaches us that creation is testimony. Creation is testimony. It testifies to God's existence, His majesty, power, creativity, and grace. The Apostle Paul refers to this in Romans 1:20, where he says, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that all people are without excuse." The writer of Hebrews, who is not Paul, by the way, in case anyone's wondering, in 11:3 says, "By faith we understand the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made from what is visible." And so when I think of God's transcendence, which is our theme for chapel this year, I think of the vastness and beauty of our universe and how it gives us a glimpse into God's awesome and infinite power. Human beings have long been fascinated by nature, especially the heavens above. Ancient civilizations marked the seasons by the stars and often memorialized their stories and myths in the constellations. In the Old Testament, the psalmist waxes poetically about the heavens, revealing the glory of God. And in the New Testament, the Magi followed the star that would eventually reveal the glory of the Messiah. So in reflecting on the testimony of creation and what it can show us of the nature and power of God, Scripture invites us to consider the heavens. So that's what we're going to spend a few moments doing this afternoon. Now, admittedly, this is an unconventional chapel message, as this is not exactly what you would call a sermon, Dr. Knowles. I think you would agree. This is more of an exercise in extended reflection. And some science and faith organizations like BioLogos periodically we'll feature presentations like this. And so this isn't something completely new or innovative, but I believe this kind of exercise can be inspiring for us as we consider the transcendence and majesty of God. So in the next few minutes, we're going to walk through a series of photographs, mostly taken from the Hubble Space Telescope and the James Webb Telescope, showing an array of images from our universe. So we're going to start in our solar system, our celestial neighborhood, as it were, and we'll progressively travel farther and farther out as we glimpse deeper and deeper into God's creation of this vast and beautiful cosmos that we call home. Everybody ready? Okay. Let's see here. Okay. We'll begin here. This is a picture of the Earth from our moon. This famous photograph was actually taken in 1968 by William Anders, an astronaut from Apollo 8. This is our home, the crown jewel of our solar system. The Earth is home to billions upon billions of human beings, animals, plants, microorganisms, and other complex forms of life. Our planet is perfectly attuned for life to thrive. Its orbit around the sun is located in what astronomers call the Goldilocks zone, meaning that it's just right. Any closer to the sun and Earth would become a molten wasteland like Mercury. Farther away and it would become a frozen tundra, incapable of sustaining life as we know it. Its atmosphere shields us from harmful solar radiation as well as asteroid impacts, and it provides us all with the oxygen we need to survive. So what are the chances of life turning out this way on our planet? Well, the fact is a lot of things had to go right for our universe to be able to support life as we know it. In fact, physicists like Fred Hoyle and others have done calculations of this and have estimated that if the mass and energy of the early universe was not evenly distributed to the precision of one part, just one part, in 10 to the 10th to the 123rd power, our universe would be completely incapable of supporting life such as we experience here on Earth. And some might compare this to winning the lottery. But a more apt comparison is that living in a finely tuned universe such as ours is like winning the lottery almost an infinite amount of times. When someone wins the lottery once, it's just dumb luck. But if someone wins the lottery over and over and over and over again, one can't help to think that the game is rigged. Or as Hoyle has said, that somebody is monkeying with the physics as well as the chemistry and the biology. And so Earth, our home, is in essence a perfectly created biosphere, an ecosystem optimized to be teeming with life. Leaving Earth now, we're traveling approximately 150 million kilometers or 93 million miles away to visit the nearest star at the center of our solar system, the sun. While our sun is clearly the largest object in our neck of the Milky Way, it's not as large as most other stars. In fact, the sun is actually classified as a yellow dwarf star. And at an estimated 4.5 billion years old, it's less than halfway now through its lifespan. The sun is our planet's source of energy, warmth, and light. And its gravity is what keeps our solar system intact. Light travels at the speed of 300,000 kilometers or 186,000 miles per second, or 9.5 trillion kilometers or 5.88 trillion miles per year. That's a light year. Up close, the sun is a raging ball of fire, a gigantic nuclear reactor full of hydrogen and helium burning at temperatures of up to 15 million degrees Celsius at its core. It is violent, but it is also a splendid part of God's creation. In Psalm 19, the psalmist uses wedding imagery to describe the beauty of the sun and how it looks from Earth's horizon as it rises and sets each morning and evening. In Psalm 104:2, the psalmist also says that God wraps himself in light as with a garment. We now leave our celestial subdivision and we go to the next neighborhood over. About 670 million kilometers from Earth, we arrive at the planet Jupiter. Now, this is just an incredible photograph taken by NASA's Juno spacecraft a couple of years ago in 2019. And astronomers love Jupiter because it's one of the easiest things to find in the night sky. So for amateur astronomers, this is one of the first things you try to train your lens on if you're looking at something beyond, the moon. It also looks like a painting. It's just beautiful, right? It looks like something Van Gogh would do. Jupiter is also a very strange planet, very different from our own. It's comprised mainly of a gaseous atmosphere, and it lacks a solid core. It's also the largest planet in our solar system, and in size, it's to Earth like a basketball is to a grape. Jupiter's not a planet that can support life, and even if it could, it's probably not a place we would want to live. Its atmosphere is constantly churning with violent storms. The planet's big red spot, which you can see up at the top right, is actually a giant cyclone that's been observed by astronomers for more than 300 years. It produces winds of over 400 kilometers per hour, and it's so massive that it's more than twice the size of our planet. We're now getting near the edge of our solar system. We're about 4.3 billion kilometers now from Earth, the outer edges. Now, a lot of people might think this is a photo of Saturn, which is understandable because of the rings. But this is actually a photo of the planet Neptune, recently taken by the James Webb Telescope. And so what makes this photo so unique is the fact that you can see the rings. Earlier photographs from Hubble and from Voyager simply could not register them because they're so faint. But here you see them on proud display. And it's such a beautiful sight. Just a lovely planet. But this really is the outer edge now of our neighborhood. And things are going to get really interesting as we go farther out. Isn't that beautiful? So leaving our solar system, we start to encounter ever more wonderful examples of beauty in our universe. And here, located about 440 light years from Earth, near the constellation Taurus, we find the Pleiades, also known as the Seven Sisters. This is a cluster of blue and white stars that shine brilliantly like sapphires in the night sky. These stars burn far hotter and brighter than our sun, as they're much younger in their celestial lifespan. The cluster of stars fascinated ancient stargazers, and it's the same cluster actually mentioned in Job 38:31, where God asked Job, "Can you bind the Pleiades together or loosen the cords of Orion?" In Psalm 147:4 and 5, the psalmist says of God that he determines the number of the stars and calls them each by name. Great is the Lord and mighty in power. His understanding has no limit. Going even farther into the outer reaches now of the Milky Way galaxy, we see a variety of nebula that are just gorgeous. And to my mind, this is where the artistry of our Creator is on full display. In the top left, you'll see the Hourglass Nebula, located 8,000 light years from Earth. You can still see the blue and green light left from the ionized hydrogen and oxygen left over from the star as it went supernova. Next to it, located about the same distance from Earth, is the Bubble Nebula. Name's pretty self-explanatory. In the upper right, we have the Carina Nebula, located about 7,500 light years from Earth. And in the bottom right, we also have the Eagle Nebula, known as the Pillars of Creation, which is about 7,000 light years from Earth. And these are just some of my favorite. There's so much variety within nebula. These are just gorgeous images. And for those who may not be familiar, nebula are large clouds of gas and dust left over from a supernova, which is the violent explosion of a dying star. Some nebula like these are actually large enough and contain enough material that they can actually start the process of new star generation, essentially becoming nurseries for the birth of new stars. And so this, in essence, is a beautiful picture of how God continues his creative work in the cosmos and how he continues to bring life from death. At this point, we have now left the Milky Way and are going into interstellar space. This is a composite photograph of Messier 31, also known as the Andromeda Galaxy. At 2 million light years from Earth, this galaxy is the closest known galaxy to the Milky Way, making it our interstellar next-door neighbor. There are a couple of reasons why astronomers are very interested in this galaxy. For one, on a very clear night, especially in the month of November, when you're in a place where there's little to no light pollution and there isn't a full moon, you can actually see Andromeda without the aid of a telescope. It's located right by the constellation Pegasus, if you remember your constellations from middle school science class. But it's beautiful. And another reason, though, why astronomers are so keenly interested in Andromeda is because despite the ongoing expansion of the universe, as galaxies are going farther and farther apart, this galaxy is actually coming right towards us. It's estimated that in another 4 billion years or so, Andromeda will begin to merge with the Milky Way. And at that point, gravity will do all sorts of interesting things, and eventually these two will merge and constitute a brand new galaxy. And so at that point, the night sky will look very different from Earth than it does now. And so in the book of Revelation, we're told of how God's story of redemption culminates in the arrival of a new heavens and earth. And so thinking of this makes me wonder what that world will be like. If there's a night sky, what will it look like? How magnificent will it be? But now let's go even farther into deep space now. This photo was taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. And at first glance, some might think that it's a star cluster. That's actually what it was classified as originally. But this is actually a galaxy. This is galaxy M87, also known as Virgo A. Virgo A is about 53 million light years now from Earth. And this is a strange galaxy. It doesn't have a spiral shape like most. It looks like a giant orb or a dim light bulb that's about to go out in the darkness of space. Notice there's also a jet of blue plasma being ejected from the center of this galaxy. And for a long time, astronomers were puzzled as to what was causing this. This is such an oddity. But a few years ago, they finally figured it out. That jet is caused by this. This is a composite photograph of the supermassive black hole that is at the center of the M87 galaxy. And this photo is significant because it's the first photographic evidence confirming the existence of black holes in our universe. It's now known that black holes play an important role in the formation of galaxies, and we also have one at the center of the Milky Way, by the way, Sagittarius A prime. So this is in our neighborhood too. The jet of blue plasma you saw in the previous photograph was caused by this black hole, which is estimated at about 2.5 billion times the mass of our sun. And so basically, a black hole is created when a large star explodes in a massive supernova, and the core that's left over from that star has enough mass and rotation that eventually It creates a hole in the fabric of space. That's what a black hole is. And gravity takes over at that point. And anything in the vicinity of the black hole is drawn in and crushed down to a single infinitesimally small point known as a singularity. The more it eats, the larger it gets. The laws of physics as we experience them break down completely as gravity takes over. In fact, gravitational forces in a black hole are so strong that even light cannot escape. Even time works differently in close proximity to a black hole. For astronomers, physicists, and science fiction writers, black holes are the stuff of imagination. And there's lots of speculation as to what's on the other side, whether they lead to other universes or other worlds with new physics unlike our own, whether they're wormholes going into the past or to a multiverse, or whether there's nothingness at the end. Black holes, to use a biblical analogy, are like the Leviathan of our universe. They're fascinating, powerful, terrifying. They're also a stark reminder of our limits as human beings, as they represent the edge of what we can know about the universe. Yet, as the book of Job reminds us, God is the creator even of Leviathan. It answers to him. Also, if we can't understand entirely the physical universe that God has created, and yet we implicitly trust him with it, then perhaps we can also trust God with the moral universe when things in our lives happen that we don't completely understand either. We're now going about as far as we can into deep space. At about 290 million light years from Earth, we find this gorgeous cluster of 5 galaxies known as Stephan's Quintet. As you can see, these galaxies are all merging with each other. And so gravity is doing some very interesting things to the shape and makeup of these galaxies. This also maybe gives us an idea of what might happen when the Andromeda galaxy eventually merges with the Milky Way. Specks of light beyond Stephan's Quintet that you can see in the background there are not stars, but are thousands of other galaxies. This gives us a glimpse into just how vast this universe is that God has created and that he continues to care for. And this is about as far as we can go. But there's still something that God has done in our universe that is even further beyond our imagining. And so now in this final image that I'm going to show you is something so astounding and remarkable that it almost defies description. And the observers who first saw this and documented it could hardly believe what they were looking at the time. So I'll just show you now. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. In him was life. And that life was the light of all humankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not apprehended it. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Even though God is infinitely powerful, even though the cosmos is vast beyond imagining, and we are so small by comparison, he loves us. He loves his creation. He loves his people. He loves you. We're not specks on a rock floating in space with no purpose. We are known and we are loved by God. And so God is not only transcendent, he is immanent, close to us. So close, in fact, that he became one of us. And so as we enter the season of Advent, we remember and we celebrate that God, who wraps himself in light, wrapped himself in humanity for us.